Today we're talking about the 1997 film Gattaca, directed by Andrew Niccol. And it's one I've been meaning to watch for such a long time as a big sci-fi fan. I've heard such rave reviews about this, specifically just about how interesting of a sci-fi concept it is and how it relates to actual science, eugenics. Yeah, just like the way, how detailed the world is, really. So I wanted to start off and look at the mise en scène of everything because I thought it was very distinct for a 90s movie. I think this is one of my favorite shots in the movie. This is part of the trailer here. I think that a lot of this movie, it felt very encapsulated. Like a lot of the production design is very sleek, what people thought the future might look like in the 90s, 80s, and just like, yeah, in past generations. But this shot feels so much bigger than that because it is showing the outdoors and it's so expansive. I just love this shot. And I don't know, stories about going to space and just like people's dreams. And it is true that a lot of people, even in real life, who probably want to go to space could be held back because of certain genetic things that they can't help, and just also with their class and just their actual physical way that they were born, the circumstances that they were born, which this movie definitely comments on quite a bit. I completely agree with that because, again, as I was watching it, it's like you think about all the little details. With a lot of sci-fi movies, you think about just a lot of the elements that are put into it that are just so, you roll your eyes, very convenient, blah, blah, things that wouldn't actually happen in real life. But so much of the science in this movie has a lot of basis to it, even with the eugenics and like the cell altering aspect to the kids. It has some basis in reality. I took a bio sci-fi course in university as I was studying film, and we briefly talked about Gattaca. We had a small unit on eugenics and just like cloning and things like that and DNA, which a lot of it did go over my head because of course I was a film major, not a science major and everything. But we discussed part of this movie when we were talking about, again, predicting the future and talking about how you can alter certain genetic code to try to like optimize certain traits. And this is, of course, a lot more dramatized than it would be in real life. But when we were talking about it in accordance to actual studies and actual things that happen, a lot of the patterns that they've found already are things like a lot of physical traits, like, like hairline, whether it be like a widow's peak or whatever, just like hair curliness and just like small like genetic things. I believe there's like a thing where your ear can be more like curled or something like that. But yeah, it was very interesting. And relating it back to this, the way that they are studying certain human traits and like the sci-fi aspects are definitely amplifying all of that, but the way that you can actually like look into the human DNA and just how crazy human DNA is something that is very true to like actual life. So yeah, that was really cool to see. Okay, I was getting off topic. At first I was talking about just the actual like the mise en scène, the very fancy film word, just like the actual production design of everything. Like I was saying with this shot, it felt very expansive, but then you would get to shots like here, let me find another one. Yeah, these, where was it? This feels very like futury, but like in a very sleek, very metallic, very focused lighting, and like using those lights to amplify the actual atmosphere of it, whether it be realistic or not. Because a lot of sci-fi, I feel like it uses sleekness when in reality, like some of the sleekness, it just feels more artificial because that is what previous sci-fi filmmakers and just like people who previously predicted what sci-fi was going to look like, it feels a little cheesy. But I think this movie made up for it with some of the like strong themes and ideas, as well as some of the more gritty locations. Like I really did like his house and like the laboratory. Again, the staircase, it's like a DNA because it's all curly. Very nice detail. And another funny thing was, yeah, the little screen. I guess that's one thing that they didn't predict 100% right, that we would have giant phone screens instead of these little digital, still kind of wonky screens. But the attention to detail in this movie was really, really cool when it came to the actual science parts. Like, I really did like how the cinematography matched the attention to detail. Like, a lot of the times, like it said in the trailer, in like the very trailery voice, where it's like, oh, how can you hide when you shed like 50 million cells a day? But the way they actually focused in on like the cell and like the little hair particles, and like the way he plants his hair in his desk, he spreads a bit of the skin particles from the other guy in his keyboard. It was just really cool to see the detail and like the little microscopic lens on all of those details. So going into full-blown spoilers, like 100% spoiling everything right now, but I'll just get you a quick recap of the events of the film. So Ethan Hawke's character, what's his name again? Vincent Freeman. Freeman, that's funny. He has this guise of being this genetically superior man. They did a test on his blood at birth, and it showed that he was genetically superior. It shows when they're going to die, how they're going to die, if they're going to have any heart conditions, blah, blah, and he's just like superior. And it shows that for like the first 10 minutes, everyone's like, hey, you're the best. You're just so cool, man. And then it's revealed through a voiceover that he's like, oh, but that's not actually me. And he's been having this ruse this whole time where he's pretending to be Jude Law's character, who actually was born of a genetically modified baby. So they took the sperm and the egg from his parents, and they chose the specific product, the specific child that had the best chance of success, chose that, and that was Jude Law. But unfortunately, he broke his back and is unable to actually live out his potential. So actually, Nicole predicted the future quite accurately. These popular spit-in-a-vial genetic companies are believed to be gathering databases of genetic info to sell to insurance companies. So if they see you have predispositions of some disease, your insurance price might skyrocket. Wow, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Again, that's just another praise to the science in this, because, yeah, you can definitely, I don't want to say accurately predict, but you can find patterns and traces of certain genetic info, and yeah, it definitely is becoming more of a reality than they might have thought back in the 90s. But yeah, it was quite a bold prediction there. So and like thinking not about like how it relates to actual real life, the way that he used this prediction and just this entire theme of predicting what your future is going to be, like he used it so well in this movie as an argument for determinism versus free will. Because at the end of the day, this movie is about the human spirit, as it says right here. There's no gene for the human spirit. And the whole argument, if we're just boiling it down to like a scientific or philosophical more argument of this movie, is that it's arguing free will, really. And it's saying that if Ethan Hawke's character is actually, or I mean, not if, he really is, he is born of an actual conception and a real pregnancy, rather than being, genetically modified at birth to optimize his chances of success. Using him as a poster for free will compared to most of the other characters as a poster for life as determinism, as I said, just life on a predicted course. The human spirit is the one like unknown factor where it's trying to argue that because you have this free will, even though all of this science says that he's going to die of a heart condition, which he did have a heart condition, but it said he was going to die when he was 32, I believe. That was the best chance, but he outlived that chance, and he just outperformed some of his, traits that he was supposed to have. Like, he was able to keep up with his brother when he was swimming. He was able to, keep up with a lot of the tests that they were doing, even though he was faking a lot of them with that fake heartbeat thing. He was able to keep up with a lot of that. And I think that the reason this movie works so well is not only is that argument very philosophically fun to think about, but it represents it in the story and visually very well. It's just this movie is very thematically rich and well thought out. Like, even just the simple race against his brother is literally just those two arguments racing against each other. And just the visual of him racing along a line, if we're thinking about them swimming And just, I thought that the visual of them swimming, the top-down shot, I really, really liked, because it was, yeah, them swimming, seeing how far they could go before they would have to turn back. And there was that really great line where his brother asked him, oh, how do you keep going this far? And he said, I don't save anything for getting back. Oh, I totally butchered that, but it's such a great visual of that literal race where it's this one guy in his brother who you think that there is an exact moment where he's going to go back. Everything along his life is completely predicted. And then for Ethan Hawke, yeah, it's just that human factor where it's like he's more unpredictable and everything. And I mean, I guess that can even get even more spiritual, where you're thinking about if there is like just a life plan and nothing is actually free will. But yeah, there are no genes for many things. For example, they couldn't find a gene for writing, so far at least. Huh. All right. But yeah, there's just this movie is just very like stimulating to think about, just the different concepts, and that's exactly what I wanted in a sci-fi movie. And I think that this movie does it so well. I wanted to talk about Jude Law's character, because his character is very interesting. With his character, who is the actual real Jerome, he was set to have this life that went out perfectly. He was set to be like literally peak male performance. And I mean, it is Jude Law, so you know, that is pretty peak. But his life was supposed to go in accordance to this plan that was set at birth. But as we can see, he ended up in a wheelchair. And the argument could either be that he tried to kill himself by jumping in front of a car that broke his back, and now he isn't able to live out all of these things that he was supposed to. But at the same time, when he jumped in front of that, he was expecting to kill himself, but he didn't, and later achieved things based on his measure of success by helping out Ethan Hawke's character. And so that would in turn fulfill the prophecy that he was successful in his own mind based on the predictions at birth. So I feel like when you're arguing free will versus determinism, there's always that factor of what is the matter of the determinism, like what is success in his mind, because all these tests that they're doing at birth, a lot of it is very physical. But I thought the interesting one is like tendency for alcoholism. And I feel like alcoholism is such a thing that's very much dependent on your situation. And are these tests taking into account his like living situation, or are they just taking account physical things? Because again, your physical situation has so much to determine as to like how you are going to end up, right? He got out of his predestination by getting his back broken. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I want to counter argue that, because like I was saying, you would think that he got out of his predestination because his back is broken, but he also was successful in his own mind because he helped Ethan Hawke, right? And so if this test at birth was determining his success in accordance to like the worldview of success, he would have failed because, yeah, he broke his back, he was in a wheelchair, and he literally died when he was in his 30s. Again, you know, you're right at the same point. I'm totally like duping myself here, because he did die in his 30s, which his predestination probably didn't have him dying in his 30s. So he did get out of that. And in the end, I think this movie is arguing on accordance to the human spirit and free will. So that would definitely have an argument there, that the whole system, the fact that he didn't work out and that Ethan Hawke is able to go to space and keep up with so many of these things. And just like, yeah, the simple fact that Ethan Hawke's character was able to keep up with his brother this whole time. Yeah, I feel like that definitely does go against a lot of the predestination of everything. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very fun movie to think about. One thing plot-wise that I wanted to point out was like when Uma Thurman figured out that he was a human, a real human, she didn't rat on him. And then also the doctor didn't rat on him. And I thought the doctor character was very funny because literally one of the first scenes in the movie, he's complimenting Ethan Hawke's dick. And he's like, "Ah, yes, I see a lot of members around when we're doing these tests, and yours is great. Yours is phenomenal." And he's like, "All right, privacy, please." And then in the end, he lets him go through after figuring out that he actually was born by real human conception. He is a, what do they call it? What do they call it in this movie? He's an invalid, but he lets him go through because alluding to his son is being an invalid as well. I don't know. I thought, honestly, I just want to mention that because I thought it was funny. The doctor character is funny. But along with the just like philosophical arguments about free will, this is definitely a criticism of, well, maybe not a criticism, just like a commentary on class very clearly. Because in this movie, when you are deemed at birth that you are just physically capable, you're going to succeed, blah, 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 that can just be directly related to real life and how where you are born and just like the circumstances that you are born gives you such a bigger chance of success. And in the end, trying to say that no matter where you were born, no matter what your circumstances are, that you can overcome that. And I'm going to make a really weird connection here. I want to relate it to Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Because the message of The Last Jedi was that anybody could be a Jedi. Rey's parents, they're nobody. This broom kid, he is going to be like, he's going to be something big. Like the last shot of The Last Jedi was literally the broom kid looking up into the stars and alluding that he's going to amount to something. And I'm still a Last Jedi lover because of those ideas. And then the last movie, Rise of Skywalker, just completely threw those out the window because they made Rey's parents literally Palpatine. And like, it's just, this is the way to go about it, is all I'm trying to say. Because all of my frustrations with Rise of Skywalker, literally my least favorite movie of all time, were because it took everything that The Last Jedi did and threw it out the window. Like, the idea that anybody could be a Jedi, no matter where you come from, was literally the whole thing of The Last Jedi. And yeah, I just want to make that connection because I feel like I always relate it back to Star Wars and me venting about Rise of Skywalker and how much I hated it. All right, what did you just say? They succeeded by gaming the system, I guess, that shows that the author thinks of the class system. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, in the end, this movie is a hopeful movie where, as in, yeah, exactly, the logline right here, there is no gene for the human spirit. And that's just a factor that no matter what physical genes that you have that they predict at birth, no matter where you were born, no matter what your situation is, there's always that human spirit aspect. And then if you're able to, I don't know, tap into that and, have a passion, you're able to, have success. And I mean, yeah, it's a good message. It's a universal message that we would see in a lot of movies at the end of the day. But I mean, yeah, the science of this movie was just so fun to play around with and well thought out. And I mean, I'm just, sucker for a sci-fi movie, specifically space movies. And you know what? I just remembered that at the very beginning of this movie, I believe it said, in the not so distant future, which is very interesting because you were pointing out so many of the things that connected to actual science developments. Like you were saying that if they see you have predispositions for some diseases, your insurance prices might skyrocket. And yeah, that is completely related to this movie. And it's just very interesting that he said not so distant future. He didn't specify a certain date or that it was very far in the future or anything. So that's very interesting. But is there anything else I want to say about this movie? The production design was great. The movie's very yellow. Which is very sci-fi kind of thing, like Earth is getting warmer, gotta go to other planets. I feel like the color yellow is always associated with like the ecological decay, and I guess yellow takes away from the greenery that Earth would have naturally, and because you do that, it feels more sci-fi because nature is just like such a anti-sci-fi like image, I guess. And a lot of like the cars were very interesting. The cars had green lights, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. It was just an interesting movie to look at, an interesting movie to think about. Oh, and the music was great. The music was awesome. Yeah, especially at the very end. It was incredible. And just like, let me just talk about the very end scene for a second, because eventually he does the urine test and the doctor lets him through, and he gets into the spaceship. The doors close at the same time as Jude Law's character gets into the incinerator, closes the door there, and they both go up in a burst of flames. Ethan Hawke's character going to the stars, and then Jude Law's character literally going up in flames. And I mean, yeah, it was just a very nice way to end off the movie. And Jude Law's character, he was very fine with his death. It's like it is what he wanted. He felt like that if Ethan Hawke had his success, that was his contribution, and that is what he wanted to do. And then I was talking about the free will versus determinism argument, but Ethan Hawke's character versus Jude Law's character are just two characters that are born of such different... If we're thinking about it in terms of like, there's many stories where you have a character born of a lower class, a character born of a higher class, and they each like they interact, and those differences cause some conflict. But in this one, you have Ethan Hawke born of a lower class just because of his genetic makeup, and Jude Law's character born of a higher class. But Jude Law's character still suffered from all of that pressure of living up to his genetic makeup. He came second, and it seemed like because he came second in a swimming competition, that literally made him depressed and want to kill himself because he wasn't number one at something, because he wasn't perfect. And so I guess that, again, could be another just criticism of just like the pressure some people have. And yeah, I don't know. It's another cool factor that, yeah, he literally wanted to oppose his genetic makeup because he came second. And if everybody in a world is predicted to be perfect, if everybody at birth, they say, oh, this is going to be a perfect human being, you're going to be slightly less, sorry, you're physically never going to be able to make it to that achievement, like, what's the point in trying? And in Jude Law's case, he thinks, oh, what's the point in living? He literally tried to kill himself. So I guess that's an argument for you really don't want that determinism aspect to a life because of just, yeah, certain people are going to be unfairly treated because of it. And again, relates back to class and everything, blah, blah. Again, I just watched it today, so a lot of my thoughts maybe not be as coherent as I do sometimes because I watched it literally 4 hours ago.